Hello, and welcome to Shane's Microscope. I'm Shane, and this is my microscope. Let's take a peek. Today's sample comes from my pizza, specifically the dough. More specifically, the yeast that went into the dough. So I mixed that yeast into a little warm water, put a few drops on a slide for us to investigate. The yeast commonly used in baking and brewing is known as Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Saccharomyces comes from the Greek sakkar for sugar and myces for fungus. You might recognize that one from mycology, the study of fungi or fungi, depending on how you like to pronounce it. And cerevisiae comes from the Latin word for beer. You probably recognize the root from the Spanish cerveza. So yeast is actually a microscopic fungus, and we can see here it's got tiny little cells. A couple of them are even budding. That's how they divide to produce another cell. So in the course of its metabolism, the yeast converts sugars into water, alcohol, and carbon dioxide. And for baking, it's mostly the gas you want. That's why yeasts are added to doughs in order to produce that gas and give the doughs a nice fluffy texture. In the presence of air, the yeast mostly produces water and carbon dioxide as it goes through its aerobic metabolism. For brewing, it's mostly the alcohol that you're interested in, although of course there are certain things like beers where you want to contain that gas so you can have it for carbonation as well. And in the absence of air, for anaerobic metabolism, the yeast produces mostly alcohol and carbon dioxide. I decided to experiment with this strange filter. I just made it out of a couple pieces of plastic and punched some holes in it, and I thought the results were interesting. It's, I guess, a kind of oblique illumination. It helps highlight the edges, and you can see under high magnification, it maybe doesn't do so much for us, but I noticed that when things were out of focus, they produced a sort of interesting flower-like pattern. So, even if it's not useful, that doesn't mean we can't do something pretty with it. And I also experimented with some other oblique illumination to increase the contrast on things. At the high magnification, we can see that it's giving us a lot better contrast, although perhaps a little less detail. Well, I thought that was a neat look at these microscopic little helpers that let us bake and brew. Alright, well, I think we'll leave it there for the day. Thanks for having a look with me. Until next time, keep on peeking.